In the untamed wilds of 1875 New Mexico, a lone rancher rescues a Navajo woman from a pack of coyotes. But what starts as a daring save soon kindles a forbidden romance between two rivals. Will their worlds shatter them or weave them together forever? Like, share, and subscribe for more epic Wild West tales. And hey, where are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let's connect. Now, let's ride into this story. The sting of the New Mexico night cut through Ethan Kane's jacket like a blade. His horse, Ember, stepped carefully along the rocky trail, hooves clinking faintly under the soft glow of the moon. Ethan had wandered these wilds for weeks, far from any town, chasing nothing but solitude. He liked it that way. The open land didn't judge a man, didn't pry into his past or the ghosts trailing him. But tonight, something felt different. The air buzzed, taut with a strange energy. Then, through the quiet, a cry tore the darkness. A sound so raw, so desperate, it jolted his heart. He froze, listening. Another shout, sharper, closer. And now the low growl of beasts. Coyotes. Without hesitation, Ethan urged Ember forward, rifle ready, charging towards the sound that would soon upend his life. The gorge opened before him, its shadows deep and restless. Down below, in a small clearing by a fading fire, in the untamed wilds of 1875 New Mexico, a lone rancher rescues a Navajo woman from a pack of coyotes. But what starts as a daring save soon kindles a forbidden romance between two rivals. Will their worlds shatter them or weave them together forever? Like, share, and subscribe for more epic Wild West tales. And hey, where are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let's connect. Now let's ride into this story. The sting of the New Mexico night cut through Ethan Kane's jacket like a blade. His horse, Ember, stepped carefully along the rocky trail, hooves clinking faintly under the soft glow of the moon. Ethan had wandered these wilds for weeks, far from any town, chasing nothing but solitude. He liked it that way. The open land didn't judge a man, didn't pry into his past or the ghosts trailing him. But tonight, something felt different. The air buzzed, taut with a strange energy. Then, through the quiet, a cry tore the darkness, a sound so raw, so desperate, it jolted his heart. He froze, listening. Another shout, sharper, closer, and now the low growl of beasts. Coyotes. Without hesitation, Ethan urged Ember forward, rifle ready, charging toward the sound that would soon upend his life. The gorge opened before him, its shadows deep and restless. Down below, in a small clearing by a fading fire, he saw her. A young woman cornered against a boulder. A pack of coyotes stalked her, their amber eyes glinting like sparks in the dark. She swung a burning stick, yelling words he couldn't understand, fear trembling in every motion. Ethan steadied his rifle, exhaled, and fired. The shot cracked through the night, echoing off the gorge walls. One coyote fell, another fled, and soon the rest scattered into the shadows. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the woman's uneven breaths. Ethan dismounted, approaching slowly, hands open to show he meant no harm. "You're safe now," he said softly. She looked up, eyes fierce and guarded despite her shaking. Blood streaked her arm, and her dark hair was tangled with dust. She didn't thank him, not yet. For a moment, they just stared. Her breathing steadied, but her gaze stayed sharp, as if weighing whether the stranger posed a greater threat than the coyotes. Ethan noticed the patterns on her dress, intricate designs, hand-woven with care. He knew what they meant. If her people found him here with her, it could mean death for them both. But he also saw how pale she'd grown and how her wound kept bleeding. "You're hurt," he said quietly. "Let me help." She flinched as he reached for her arm, then paused. Finally, she nodded once, just enough to let him wrap a torn strip of cloth around her wound. "You saved me." "Why?" she whispered, her voice soft but clear.
Ethan hesitated, eyes on the fire. "Because no one should die alone out here," he answered, his voice low and honest. Her expression softened at his words. The fear in her eyes faded, giving way to curiosity, then something warmer, understanding. She studied him, this weathered rancher with tired eyes and hands that shook slightly as he tied the cloth. He wasn't like the soldiers her people cursed, the ones who burned camps and broke promises. He looked like a man fleeing something unseen. "My name is Nia," she said at last, her name floating gently through the cold air. Ethan tipped his hat. "Ethan Kane," he replied. They sat by the dying fire, neither sure what to say next. The wind whispered through the gorge, carrying the scent of sage and earth. Above, the moon hung full and pale, watching over two strangers who should have been enemies, but were now bound by something neither could name. If you're loving this tale of courage and connection, hit that like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more epic Wild West tales. And hey, where are you listening from today? Drop a comment below, and let's connect. Now let's ride into this story. Hours passed before they spoke again. Ethan gathered branches, stoking the fire, while Nia pulled her blanket tighter. Color returned to her cheeks, and her trembling eased. "You travel alone," she said, more a statement than a question. Ethan nodded. "Just me and my horse out here," he said with a faint smile. She tilted her head, trying to read the man behind the calm voice. "Why?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe it was easier to vanish into the wilds than face what he'd left behind. A war, a lost home, a world with no place for a broken man. He looked at her instead. "Sometimes the land's quieter than people," he said finally. She nodded, understanding more than he expected. Silence settled again, but it was a softer kind, the kind that didn't need breaking. As dawn crept in, the first light painted the cliffs in gold. Ethan watched the colors shift from deep indigo to rose, then to flame. He'd seen sunrises like this 100 times, but never truly noticed until now. Nia sat beside him, her head resting lightly against the rock, eyes half closed. She looked serene, almost fragile in the morning glow. He realized how young she was, maybe barely 20, yet her gaze held a strength born of a life harsher than his own. She turned to him, eyes steady. "You could have left me," she said. "Most men would have." Ethan met her gaze and shrugged. "Maybe I ain't like most." For the first time she smiled, small, uncertain, but real. Then she whispered something that would stay with him forever. "You're my man now." Ethan froze, unsure if he heard right. The words were simple, but their weight hung heavy in the air. She said it not as a claim, but as a vow, born from survival. He wanted to laugh, to say she owed him nothing, but her eyes held no doubt, no fear, just truth, the kind deeper than logic. "Nia," he began carefully, "you don't have to—" She stopped him with a glance. She said, "I know, but I choose." There was no arguing with that. The wilds were full of things that defied sense, storms that struck without warning, streams that vanished overnight, and now maybe a love that sparked between two people who never should have met. Ethan nodded slowly, tipping his hat. "Then I guess we ride together," he said quietly. Nia smiled at the horizon. "For now," she whispered. The morning sun spilled over the wilds like molten gold, chasing away the night's chill. Ethan squinted against the glare as he packed his saddle, still half lost in thought. Saving Nia felt right, but now he wasn't sure what came next. He knew enough about Navajo lands to understand he'd crossed into forbidden ground. Her people wouldn't care that he'd saved her. They'd see only an outsider with their daughter. But when he looked at her walking a few steps ahead, her hair shimmering in the dawn, he couldn't bring himself to leave. Something about her presence anchored him, quieted the emptiness inside. "We should move," she said softly, without turning. He nodded. Whatever lay ahead, danger or peace, he was already too deep to turn back. Days passed as they traveled side by side through the harsh wilds. The land was unforgiving, a sprawl of dust, cactus, and wind that could break the toughest soul. But somehow it didn't feel so lonely anymore. Nia spoke little at first, but Ethan learned to read her silences, the way her eyes softened at a hawk overhead, or how her lips curved when the breeze carried the scent of creosote. When he stumbled over a rocky outcrop and cut his arm, she knelt beside him without hesitation. "Hold still," she murmured, tearing a strip from her own skirt to bind the wound. Her hands were steady, her touch gentle. Ethan chuckled softly. "Seems I'm the one needing saving now." She smiled faintly. "Even strong men bleed." Her words, simple and true, sank deeper than she knew. Each night they camped beneath a sky so vast it made a man feel small. Ethan would light a fire, and Nia would hum soft songs in her native tongue, melodies of spirits, rivers, and lost warriors. One evening, as the fire crackled low, she caught him staring. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Ethan poked the fire with a stick, choosing his words. "How someone like you ended up alone out here." Nia looked away, her eyes glistening in the firelight. "My people were moving camps," she said quietly. "I went to find water. Then the coyotes came. I thought I'd die." Her voice faltered. Ethan nodded slowly. "You were lucky," he said. She met his gaze, her lips curving slightly. "No," she whispered. "I was meant to meet you." As days stretched into a week, Ethan taught her things she hadn't known. How to follow the stars for direction, how to calm a spooked horse, how to read the wind before a storm. In return, Nia showed him the secrets of the wilds, where to find water hidden under stones, how to listen for snakes in tall grass, which herbs could stop bleeding. They began to understand each other in ways words couldn't capture. Yet, beneath the calm, a shadow grew. Ethan noticed her eyes scanning the horizon more often, her steps growing restless. "They'll come for me," she said one night, her voice barely a whisper. "My people won't understand." Ethan stared into the fire, jaw tight. "And what do you understand?" She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned closer, resting her head lightly on his shoulder. The next morning, they woke to faint smoke rising in the east, a signal. Nia's face paled. "They're near," she said, her voice trembling. Ethan's instincts screamed to ride away, to vanish before they found him. But he didn't. "I won't run," he said firmly. She turned to him, eyes wide with fear and something else, sorrow. "If they find you with me, they'll kill you." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll die knowing I did right." All day they rode in silence, the wilds stretching endlessly before them. As the sun dipped low, they stopped by a dry riverbed. The wind carried a faint rhythm, drums, distant but growing closer. Nia's hand found his. "It's time," she whispered. Ethan's heart pounded, but he didn't pull away. The Navajo warriors appeared like ghosts from the dust, proud men with painted faces and sharp eyes, their spears glinting in the dying light. Ethan dismounted slowly, hands raised to show peace. The warriors shouted in their language, circling him, weapons ready. Nia stepped forward before they could strike. "Wait," she cried. Her people fell silent at her voice. The chief, an older man with a face carved by time and sun, stared at her in disbelief. "Nia," he said sharply, "you were taken." She shook her head. "No, he saved me." Murmurs rose, angry, confused. "He's an outsider! He doesn't belong here!" She faced them, chin high, her hand clutching Ethan's tightly. "He fought the coyotes, and he fought my fear." Her words hung in the air, like dust caught in sunlight. No one moved. The chief studied his daughter, standing beside a man she should have hated. "You call him your man?" he asked slowly, almost disbelieving. Nia nodded. "Yes," she said. "He's my man now." Ethan swallowed hard, knowing what those words could cost her. For a long moment, the only sound was the whisper of wind through the dry grass. Then the chief lowered his spear. "If he saved your life," he said at last, "he's earned his own." Nia exhaled shakily, her hand still trembling in Ethan's. The tension broke. The warrior stepped back, watching warily. Ethan realized for the first time that mercy could exist, even in a land scarred by pain. That night, they camped under the tribe's watchful eyes. Ethan sat by the fire, feeling every stare, an outsider in a world that didn't want him. Nia sat beside him, speaking softly to her people in their tongue. He didn't understand the words, but he felt the strength in her tone, proud, unashamed. When she turned back to him, her eyes were soft. "They won't harm you," she said. "My father agreed. You'll leave at dawn." Ethan nodded slowly. "And you?" he asked. Nia hesitated, the firelight flickering across her face. "I belong to my people," she whispered, but she reached out, placing a hand over his heart. "Part of me will ride with you always." Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. When dawn came, the wilds felt different, brighter, almost forgiving. Ethan mounted Umber, turning one last time to see Nia standing on a ridge, her hair blowing in the wind. She raised a hand in silent farewell, and he tipped his hat in return. No words could capture what they'd shared. A bond forged not by blood or tribe, but by courage, kindness, and something deeper than either could name. As he rode away, the rising sun cast long shadows behind him, but for the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel alone. Somewhere back there, in the red rocks and golden sands, was a woman who'd faced coyotes and chosen him. And though the world would never understand, that was enough. If this story touched your heart, give it a like, share it with someone who loves a good tale, and hit subscribe for more. And one last time, where are you listening from? Let's hear it in the comments. Until next time, keep writing.